Thank you. Thank you all. I'm going to talk about, what it took for me to become a doctor. Give some pointers as far as things needed in order to be able to succeed, with your whatever education goals you may have. And yes, I did graduate from United High School in 1988, but had United South been built then, this would have been my school. My two younger brothers graduated from here, from United South High School. I grew up here in Villa del Sol. Does anybody know where that's at? Villa del Sol? Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So I've lived there since I was 5 years old, and my parents still live there. So that's. And as was mentioned, my clinic is right here on Ejido and Loop 20. So, things that you need in order to be able to excel, school is not easy. High school is a lot of fun. And when you're in high school, you see it as, very challenging. You stress out a lot about it. When I was in high school, I didn't stress out about high school. I wasn't a straight A student. I was an A, B, and every now and then I would get a C. My life was revolved around sports. It was football, baseball, track. And my goal at the time was to play either professional baseball or football. And I was being scouted. I'm actually inducted in the Latin American Hall of Fame for baseball. But I was being scouted for football and baseball. But my senior year, I got both knees taken out in one hit in football, and that ended my athletic career. So then, I had to make decisions, So now what? Because, I grew up in a very humble home. My parents didn't have a college education fund for me, and like I told you, I was an A, B, sometimes C student, so I wasn't going to get scholarships, and I was going to have to pay my own way through school. So the smaller schools that still wanted me to go would tell me, come out and try out, like Cornell, Brown, all these Ivy League schools, that I couldn't afford. Come on, try out. If you make it, then we'll give you a scholarship. So that was not doable for me. My parents could not afford, I could not afford to leave. I mean, I could afford Laredo Junior College at the time. Now it's Laredo Community College, which is where I started out my college education. So first thing you need, is to set goals for yourself. That is very important. Without goals, you cannot see the future. You do not know what you're working for, or you don't know where you're going. And it's hard to go somewhere if you don't have directions, right? So I made a decision at that point. Well, you know what? I'm going to stay here with my dad. He had used car lots and worked the business and go to college and take some classes. I didn't know I wanted to be a doctor at the time. And, so I started taking some classes. And in high school, work was just easy for me. I rarely ever studied. I still managed to graduate in the top quarter of my class in high school, but really never studied. I mean, it was just, it was just easy, So when I started taking college, of course, I had no study habits, And then the work got a little bit tougher, but still very doable. And then I started taking some of the sciences, and I liked the sciences, And it was really weird because, I always thought scientists were geeks, So, I started liking chemistry, I started liking biochemistry. I really loved biology. you know. And then we started messing around with the stuff in the labs and made a couple of Bunsen burners pop, and you know, you're like, wow, okay. So I got something that I liked, you know, and I thought to myself, hey, you know what? I don't like business. I don't like history, you know. I think I can do something with biology, you know, with chemistry. And so at that point in time, I had already been at LCC for 3 semesters, and I decided I wanted to transfer out. Well, I was working full-time and going to school full-time, so my grades were not the best, and I was going to have to pay for my college, and I decided I'm going to leave because I needed to leave. Back at the time, we didn't have TAMU. You know, I'm going to leave to pursue my goal at the time, which was just to do something with science. You know, so at that point in time, I set a goal. You know, I just wanted to be a scientist. I pictured myself working in a lab. You know, trying to come up with some new technology, new medicine, new something. You know. But I didn't have the money, so I ended up, I had a sister living in San Antonio at the time, you know, and I wanted to move up there and just kind of hang out with her and go to school. And then my girlfriend at the time, who was my high school sweetheart, you know, we also she ended up wanting to leave as well, so we figured we would all just live together and share expenses. Of course, her parents were very strict and stuff, and they said, you guys are going to live together, you guys have to get married, you know, you can't just live together. So I ended up getting married at the age of 19, you know, no kids, you know, just we ended up getting married so we could go to college and share expenses, you know. So once I got to UTSA, which is where I transferred out to, you know, the work got even tougher. Like, I mean, it's like, you know, all of a sudden I'm dealing with like triple the work of what I was accustomed to. You know, so of course my first semester was not very good. And when I went to the pre-med advisor, you know, he said, he looked at my SAT scores, my high school scores, he looked at my first 2 years, and then of course my first semester there, my first year and a half really at LCC, and my first semester there, which was my first 2 years. After I transferred from Laredo Community College though to UT San Antonio, I lost a lot of hours because a lot of hours didn't transfer. So for those of you that decide you guys want to stay here with plans to transfer somewhere, make sure you get a good counselor that makes you take courses that will transfer. Otherwise, I lost a whole semester when I transferred. Well, needless to say, when I get there to my pre-med advisor, he looks at me and he tells me, you know what? You'll never be a doctor. You know, what makes you think you can be a doctor? Are your parents doctors? No. Family doctor? No. Do you have money to pay medical school? No. Your grades are mediocre. You know, and I know what it takes to get into medical school, and you need to look for something else to do. I can't help you. You know, and he threw the chart at me and said, you can help yourself out. And I was like, wow. Well, you know, don't tell me I can't do something, you know, which is that, you know, I've proven people wrong all of my life, and I will continue to do that. So I went, you know, of course I was destroyed, you know, because by this time I went into the pre-med. I went to the pre-med advisor thinking maybe there's a possibility that I can be pre-med, but at the same time my major was biology and a minor in chemistry. So I had a backup plan, you know, in case you know, I wanted to go into medicine. Well, I was already in the pre-med society from the beginning, and if I wanted to do straight science, well, I could always drop out of the pre-med society. But right off the bat, I was told you can't be a doctor. So good. So I started taking my classes there in San Antonio, and now I have determination. You know, so you need to have a goal, and you need to have determination. You know, now I had determination. You know what? I'm going to prove this guy wrong. You know, and even though I wasn't a straight A student in high school, from then on, I never got a B. I became a straight A student in college, and at first I was looking for people to study with, because in college people study in study groups. You get a study group, you know. And I was trying, and people were just like, no, we're full. Sorry, we're full, you know. So I ended up studying by myself all the time. And guess what? If the highest score you could score on a test was 110, that is the score I would get. You know, that is always what I would shoot for. Every now and then I would just get 100, you know. But people started not wanting to take classes with me because there was always a curve. When say the highest grade was a 95, everybody would get 5 points, right? Well, when I was in the class, there was never any curves, because I aimed for perfection. So then people started noticing me, and then people wanting to study with me, and at that point I was like, I'm doing fine. And then I get to the class, I get to the class of this pre-med advisor who told me that I would never be a doctor, and I purposely take his class, and I scored perfect on his test, his first test, and he said it's impossible. It's biochemistry. Biochemistry was very difficult in college. It's impossible. He said you cheated, you know. So he even took me before the dean because he wanted me to take an essay style test, not a multiple. You know, and needless to say, the dean said, you can't do that unless you're going to do that with all the other students. You can't discriminate, right? So then the second test came about, scored perfect again, and this guy is like, who are you? Where did you come from? What are you doing? Like, you know, and he goes, and what are you going to do? I said, well, I want to be a doctor. At that point, I had made the decision. You know, I was doing really good in the sciences. I knew I could do it, and I was really liking the anatomy and physiology. You know, I really enjoyed the biochemistry. You know, I was doing comparative anatomy, comparative physiology. I was doing oceanography, like all this stuff that really fascinated me that had to do with biology and the bodies, and not only the body, not only the human body, but other species. You know, and he said, it's impossible for you to be a pre-med guy because, you know, I'm the pre-med advisor, and anybody who's going to medical school goes through me. And I said, I know. So when I started here, I went to you, and you said that I would never be a doctor. And he stayed looking at me, and he said, oh, how long ago was that? I said, sir, that was a year and a half ago. He goes, well, would you be interested in doing research for me? And I can help you. By that time, I was doing research in cell biology with one of my other professors who really quickly said, I'll help you, don't worry. Stick to me, you know, and I'll help you get guidance to get into medical school. So, and I turned him down. So, needless to say, I take my MCAT, my medical college admissions test. I did good, but I knew I could have done better. And I was applying to medical school as a junior, and nowadays you can't get into medical school without having a degree. But back then you could get, if your scores were high enough, GPA was high enough, you could get into medical school after getting your 90 hours, which is equivalent to 3 years of college. You know, and I applied, and I actually got interviews to different schools, but I didn't get in. But as a senior, I had no trouble getting into medical school, and I ended up at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. Um, there is where I got like my first real slap in the face as far as what it took to be a doctor. You know, you're dealing with people, people living, being born, people dying, sick people, healthy people. You know, and my I've never really been around like anybody dead at the time. You know, and like I never been exposed. I did some volunteer work at the trauma center in San Antonio, so I would see some gunshot wounds and accidents, people bloody and stuff, but you know, I never actually got close to a dead body. So the first day of my first year in medical school, there's what's called a white coat ceremony. So, you know, medical students are, you can pick out medical students because we're the people with short white coats in the teaching institutions. And so they make this line, the upperclassmen, they put on this little coat on you with a pin, and then they take you up to the gross anatomy lab. You know, and gross anatomy is where you get your dead body. And I knew exactly where we were going, and I was like, man, I don't think I can do this. Like I don't think, you know, I was scared, you know, and I was like, I remember I was like feeling like I was gonna faint. And all of a sudden, they put you before this big old silver tank, you know, stainless steel, and you smell a lot of formaldehyde. You know what formaldehyde is, right? You guys, the dissected cats and stuff, you know, it's what's used to preserve tissue. Very strong odor. And when you're a first-year medical student, everybody knows that you're a first-year medical student because you smell like that all year, you know, okay? So all of a sudden, you know, I have a lab partner. He's at the feet, I'm at the head, and there's two things, and you pull down, and all of a sudden this body comes up, you know? Yeah, so all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I felt like I was really gonna faint. And I was like, you know, you can't faint. You're pre-med, I mean, you're in medical school now, you're gonna be dealing with people, and if you faint, I mean, people are gonna laugh at you, you know? So I managed to hold it up, and sure enough, by a week into gross anatomy, you know, I was very comfortable with my body. And then I spent so much time with her that first year, because you start off with a dead body, and by the end of the year, the entire body's chopped up. You can't recognize anything. Like, you know, everything is dissected. Even the head, you know, I had to put between my head and saw it this way, and then saw it that way. And now they have electric saws. Back then it was with a cegueta, you know. So, you know, and you know, spent so much time with that body that I would even dream about her. You know, her name was, she was an old lady, and I called her Thelma, and so I would dream about Thelma, you know. Yeah, really. So anyways, needless to say, medical school was, even though it was a lot of work, you know, a full-time schedule in college is 15 hours. Actually, it's 12 hours. It's 12 hours. In college, I always took 15 to 18 hours so I could catch up. I had lost a semester and graduate on time. In medical school, you take to what's equivalent to 30 hours, okay, per semester. So that's what people typically do in 1 year in college. So the workload was incredible, and it was tough. You know, by then I had developed awesome study skills, though. You know, and you know, and by then, even though I tried to score perfect on tests, it was just impossible. But you know, I did graduate again in the top quarter of my class from medical school out of 200 students. So it was a lot of fun. Hey, you know, we still had intramural sports, of course. I played baseball. It was softball, actually. Football, it's a group of Mexicans. We were football champs for 4 straight years. Yeah, because there was a medical school, there was a physical therapy school, there was a nursing school, medical technology school. There was all kinds of schools there at UTMB, and we would all compete against each other. So there was a lot of things to do. A lot of friends, made a lot of friends, and even though we studied hard, we also had a great time. So I graduate. I was gonna do surgery. I was gonna be a general surgeon at first, but then the where I was at, the surgeons were very mean, and I just didn't like that. I'm an easygoing guy, laid back, and then I was gonna do obstetrics and gynecology, but doing the same thing over and over again is not the same thing. Is not a good thing for me. So I decided to do family medicine, where I do some surgery, I deliver babies, and I get to take care of kids and adults and stuff like that. So, then I went to residency. That was 4 years of college, 4 more years of college. Then I went to residency in Waco, where I did my internship, and then 3 years of family medicine residency. So I graduated in 1988 from high school, and I finished everything in 2000, which is when I came back home. So we talked about goals. We talked about dedication, and and now I'll talk to you about really picking something that you want to do. Okay, something that you like to do. You can't pick a career because of the rewards that the career has. You have to pick a career because that's what you like. Because me as a doctor now, if I didn't like what I did, if I didn't enjoy so much doing what I did, I would be a very miserable person. Thank God I've been blessed with a lot of work. I'm up early in the morning and I don't get home till late at night. And people tell me, I don't know how you do it. Well, it's because I love it. I love doing, I get tired, sure, but I love doing what I do. You also need support. You also need support. When I was, my dad didn't have a high school degree. My mom didn't have a high school degree. And of course we were 7 kids and we would struggle, and when I told my dad I was leaving for college, and I was the one that would take care of the business when my dad was out of town, he told me, why are you going to college? Why are you going to school? I need you here. I need you to take care of the business, But, and a lot of people would have said, okay, I need to help the family. I need to help my dad. But I decided at that point that I wanted something different, that I didn't want to live the life that he had lived, and that I want to provide better for my family, So you need support from the family. I felt guilty for maybe, a couple of months that I left, despite my dad not wanting to. But then once he saw, I would bring him home the grades, and I would bring him home the letters where it says, congratulations, you made the dean's list again. Every semester dean's list. The only reason I didn't graduate with one of the fraternities, the honor fraternities, was because, you have the cum laude, summa cum laude, magna cum laude. Those are the honor societies that you graduate from college when you're up there with a GPA of 3.75 or higher. The only reason I didn't graduate with that is because my first year and a half here killed me. My GPA, my first semester over there. I did graduate with a total GPA of 3.7, but my science GPA was a 4.0 flat. I mean, that was all A's. So having support is very important. Having your goal direction, having support, liking what you're doing is very important. As a doctor, I know I'm not here to speak about becoming a doctor, but as a doctor, there are a lot of rewards. You work hard, but there you get a lot of rewards from the community. Just treating people, meeting people, seeing somebody be real sick, to being real healthy. Seeing somebody on the brink of death and then walking out of there is great. Having a family member from the family die and within that same week another one is born in that same family. I mean, it's just very rewarding. So, I mean, those were the things that I used, you know, the dedication and determination, goals. Those are the most important things. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do something, and no matter who it is, because everything is possible. Anything is possible, as long as you have the desire and as long as you have the will. And everything takes hard work. Nothing comes handed to you. Nobody's going to give you a key to a house and the key to a car and say, here, you deserve that. No, you're going to have to do it for yourself. Anybody have any questions?
Well, you know how you said people ask you, like, oh, how did you do it, like, being late? And, like, when you said that it was important to something, like, well, so you wouldn't have to work it in your life, right? That's how you do? Like, that's how you do it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's if you have that feeling, obviously that would be the optimal feeling. Like, I don't work a day in my life because I enjoy what I do so much. It's all fun. I mean, that is obviously the ideal perception of what your day should be like. Sometimes it does seem like work, though. But yeah. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How many years did you do it?
12 total. Yeah. It's 12 years total.
There at UTS, how many?
I did 4 years at UTSA, then I did 4 years at UTMB, and then I did 4 years at UT Southwestern.
So you left right away from where you like did for LCC?
Well, I went to LCC for 3 semesters.
So
Yeah.
if you didn't go, your GPA would have been better?
Well, no, I'm glad I stayed here because had I gone straight to UTSA, I would have been even in bigger shock because I had no study habits and I had no concept of, of studying. I had I went right out of high school. Here, the classes were not hard, and I did okay. I could have done better. I did a lot better at UTSA than at LCC. The difference was that my eyes were open and I developed very good study habits. In anything that you do, it's important to stay ahead of what you're doing. Don't let yourself fall behind. Don't procrastinate. When you study, the key is to staying on top of things. If you fall behind, then that puts more stress, and you tend to bombard your brain with more information, and you're going to lose some of that come test time. Always stay ahead of the game, and then that way you learn with less stress and you retain more information. Somebody over here?
I was going to ask you that. Just what you have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I would go to lecture. I would take very simple notes in lecture because I didn't want to take away my focus from what the professor was saying. And in college, you're like in an auditorium probably as big as this room, and it's full of people, When you're and that was UTSA. I can't imagine what A&M or UT or what those auditoriums look like, So I would go. I would always record my lecture. I would really just draw my diagrams. Then I would get home. When I would get home that same day, I would listen to the lecture again and write detailed notes. Okay? So, and then of course, whatever reading we had to do off the book, So, I mean, I did manage to get, once I was at UTSA, I did manage to find some help. There is a lot of help for minorities, and if you're a female, you're a double minority, and there's loans and grants and scholarships. I'm still paying for my school. I've been here 14 years. I graduated medical school in 1997, and I am still paying for my school. It's okay. Yeah, you can pay. I can afford to pay it, no problem. You know, I got my education. You know, I work hard, and it's no problem paying that back.
Was your major always biology, or did you ever switch?
In college, no. When I went to college, when I went to LCC, it was just I didn't have a major. I didn't even declare a major. I was like, I'm just gonna take basics, you know. But when I went to UTSA, I did declare a major in biology, and then my counselor said, I suggest you do a minor in chemistry, you know, if you want to do lab, if you want to become like a scientist where you're going to be working in a lab, you know, get your minor in chemistry. But you know, there's people in medical school that were pharmacists. You know, there was people in medical school that were engineers. You know, like, so you don't have to do biology or chemistry to go into medical school, but obviously that helps a lot, because you take a lot of your anatomy, your physiology, your biology, your physics, chemistries, biochemistries, you know, all that stuff, microanatomy, all that stuff, cell biology, all that stuff you're going to redo again in medical school, but obviously with much more detail.
And just came back to Laredo, and you opened your own clinic?
Doctors Hospital helped me. When I was a second year resident, I signed a contract with Doctors Hospital, so they were actually paying me some money while I was still in school, you know, so I could help, you know, provide. And by then I already had my first child, and then when I got here, obviously I had already signed a contract with them, and it was a 3-year contract, and of course that's been done with a long time. And well, thank God. I mean, we have a lot of work here in Laredo. We lack doctors. You know, if you know you want to be a doctor, come back home, and you're going to be busy. Just, I mean, obviously you won't be busy if you kill too many people, but you know. So, yeah. I'm sorry. I got my medical degree. I got it since 1997. You know, but I've been practicing medicine here in Laredo since 2000. I'm sorry? I actually, well, you know, it was not a very nice thing to do. But when I got my acceptance letter to medical school, you know, I put in big quotes at the top, "You will never be a doctor," and I slid it under his door. You know. I always, if you look at my application for medical school, you know, in there I stated my intentions are to come back home and provide for my people. You know? So.
You're the main doctor?
Yes, I'm the owner. This is mine. This is mine. South Laredo Family Clinic. Yeah.
And you still haven't paid your school?
I graduated with a $200,000 debt. Yeah, medical school is like $50,000. $50,000 a year. Yeah. Yeah, and it's 4 years. MCAT? Of course it's hard, man. That's what they're gonna. Yeah. I actually took a Kaplan course, like an MCAT prep course. You know. Mm-hmm. I took it my junior year, and then I took it again my senior year. My senior year, I scored a couple of points higher. I mean, it wasn't, you know. So, yeah. Any other questions?
How much do you make a year?
Oh my God. You know, like I was saying, you can't do something because of the money. I mean, just let me start off by saying that in my profession, we are paid very well, right? But there's a lot of changes that are coming about that now I'm having to work more to make less. So don't go into medicine because of the money. You know, again, I've been blessed, you know, and I'm probably the family doctor that makes the that gets paid the most here in Laredo, but it's only because we're the biggest clinic. I have 2 nurse practitioners that help me, and I do obstetrics. I deliver babies, which very few other family doctors do, and I do a lot of procedures, surgical procedures, which a lot of other doctors don't do. So, you know, but there's the cardiologists that make more money than me. You know, there's bone specialists that make a lot more money than me. You know, so it depends on what kind of doctor you are. You know, if you look at the national average of income for physicians, Laredo ranks one of the highest because we're just so underserved. So we work a lot. Oh, like somewhere if you go to Dallas, you know, if a doctor sees 20 patients a day, that is a full clinic, and they're like, man, that was tough, right? Here I see 20 patients in 4 hours. That's what I see in the morning, you know, which typically ends at about 1 or 2. And some of you guys have experience in my office, been in my office, you know. So, and there's about 150 patients that go through my clinic every day for whatever reason with the nurse practitioners and myself. So, you know, again, I'm not going to give you a specific number, but I mean, thank God, you know, we do well. But we work hard. And everything related to medicine is expensive. You know, if you have like a regular light like this on your desk, that's $20 that you bought at the store. Well, if it's a medical lamp, it's $1,000. You know, so everything is, you know, a table, you know, for us is $6,000, just one table, you know, like, so everything is very expensive. My insurance that I pay, my malpractice insurance that I pay every year is $60,000. So.
Sir, if you get sick, you go to the doctor.
If I get sick, do I go to the doctor?
Yes.
Well, thank God I've never had to. You know, I've never had to. I mean, I get sick frequently because, you know what? As a family doctor, I do a lot of pediatrics. There's a lot of illness, a lot of viruses and stuff. So the kids come to me, I'm examining them. They're sneezing on my face, coughing, you know, crying and stuff. And it's inevitable, you know, you catch a bug here and there, you know. But thank God I know a little bit, you know, as far as what medicine to take and stuff, you know. No. Once you're in medical school, you have gone through such a rigor screening process that really it's very rare that somebody doesn't make it through. Okay, because out of 200 students in my class, 1 person didn't graduate. You know, because you've gone through the MCAT, you've gone through all the interviews, you know, you've gone through your GPA, you've gone through college. You've demonstrated your ability. So by the time you get to medical school, you've gone through such a rigorous screening process that the people that make it are people that make it into medical school are people that are going to make it. Every now and then, somebody has a change of heart. Yeah, you know what, medicine's not for me, and they drop out. You know, but you know, so going back to the question, no, I wasn't afraid to take out the loans, because I was almost guaranteed that I was going to graduate. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever doubt yourself?
Oh man, many times. Are you kidding me? When you're sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning and you've been studying for 24 hours straight, you have 5 tests in one day, and you're going to be testing from 7 in the morning till 6, 7 at night with a 1-hour lunch break, you know, and you're sitting there going through these piles of information. You know, of course, you're like, oh man, no way, can't do this, you know? Or when you're in residency, that you go in at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning to do rounds, then you work all that day, and then you're the resident on call that night, so then you work all that night again without any sleep, and then you have to finish the next day, and then you can go home. So you basically went 48 hours without sleeping. And then you're sleep deprived, and you have to talk about the 11, 12 people that you admitted through the night, and there's all these people there looking at you, and you have to present the patient, and you have to explain why you did what you did in the management of this patient, And then they're asking you questions, well, what about this? And why didn't you think about that? And you haven't slept since 2 nights ago, you know? Yeah, you're feeling like, man, I can't do this. I can't do this. But you know what? You have that dedication, right? You have that determination, you know? And you have that goal, right? And you just keep going and keep going, you know? You're always going to, in college, you're always going to feel overwhelmed. You're always going to feel burned out. It's burnout after burnout after burnout, and you just keep going, you know? Get used to it because that's life. Life is not easy, you know? Life, you always have problems, and you overcome one problem, and then there's another problem. And you have to get used to overcoming those problems. So you can be a happy person, otherwise you're always going to be sad. Yes, ma'am? Well, that's one thing that you guys have to take into consideration. When you get married young, you know, people grow up and people grow apart. You know, when people grow up, you may continue in having the same interest, but chances are you're going to develop different interests. You know, you grow up and you're not being in love when you're 15, 16, 17 years old is not the same as being in love when you're 30, 35, 40 years old. And it's not the same, as I take it, being in love when you're 50, 60 years old, right? You know, so people change. So if you're gonna get married at a young age, you just keep that in mind. You know, and unfortunately, because of all the time that was required from me to become a doctor, my ex-wife, she's a school teacher, and she went through all this stuff with me, you know, but, you know, her focus became the children, and my focus became my job. And unfortunately, you know, but we're still, I mean, obviously, we're best friends. I mean, we get along better now than we did before, and our objective is obviously the kids, you know, make sure that they grow up good.
She separated you all the way?
I'm sorry?
Did she separate you?
Yeah. Like financially or emotionally? Emotionally, yes. Yeah. Yes. Emotionally, yes. Financially, she was just as poor as I was. So, you know, so yeah. You know. Which, yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, with hard work sometimes come sacrifices, and unfortunately, in my field, doctors have a very high divorce rate because it's hard to be in a relationship with somebody who's never home. And you're in Christmas, and you get a phone call, and guess what? You need to leave. You know, if you're on call, birthday parties, weddings, you know. So it's just part of what it is. But you know, there's a lot of cool things. You know, how many am I over?
No, you have 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things that come for those of you that are interested in being a doctor. You know, the perks. Well, you know, one like, you know, I was the team doctor for the Bucks. You know, I was a team doctor for the baseball team, so I get a lot of stuff there. I'm the doctor for the arena. You know, so I get to meet a lot of the stars. You know, anybody who's sick, any dancer who's sick, any performer who's sick. You know, guess who they call? They call me. You know, and so I get to meet a lot of them. I am the family medicine medical director for the Texas Department of Health, the city clinic. So I get to run that. I was chief of staff at Doctors Hospital, and now I'm chief of staff at Laredo Medical Center. I was a board member at Doctors Hospital, so I get to have a big say-so in how the hospitals run. And being chief of staff, it means that you're the doctor in charge. So everything and anything that has to do with doctor problems or issues or decisions, in the end, I have the final say-so. So you know, you get you know, there's. And of course, and people just, you know, Sometimes I don't even have to pay for dinner, you know, because I'll be somewhere having dinner, and they'll be like, "Oh, that person paid for your dinner," and it was one of my patients. Ah, you know, right? So, you know, and I still, even though I don't want to seem like all I do is work, you know, I love to get on my Harley Davidson once a year for a 10-day ride, usually across America. I've gone around Lake Michigan, you know, I've been to Wyoming, of course, Sturgis, Colorado, Arizona, like, so I still get to enjoy myself. One of my hobbies is music. You know, I also, I'm in the music ministry for St. Patrick's Church. I'm their drummer, you know, get to play every now and then, you know, with rock bands, and, you know, it's just, you know, so and you know why? Because I have, you know, I've worked hard and I work hard, so that means I have the ability to be able to do those things. Yes, ma'am.
In your opinion, what was the most difficult subject in medical school?
In medical school, to be honest with you, it was pharmacology. Because in pharmacology, you have to learn all the medicines, exactly how they work, you know, side effects, you know, and how they work at the tissue level, you know. So, and there's so many of them, you know. Anatomy, you know, even doing an autopsy on a person was not as hard as having to learn all those medicines, you know. So yeah. I tell you my story of you know, talking about being afraid. The first baby I delivered, right? Oh, being afraid, you know, it's the first baby you're delivering, you know. And so we have a mannequin, and, you know, I'm practicing my maneuvers with the baby, bringing down, turning the head, extending, you know, and getting the shoulder, bringing the shoulder and stuff, right? So they're like, okay, you know, get in there, you know. So I get in there, and my eyes are like this, you know, and of course, you know, you see it's called crowning, you see the head. And there it is. And push and push and push, and all of a sudden, I've practiced so many times how to get this baby, turn it around, you know, and grab it and cut it, and you know, get this baby, comes right through my hands, boom. Thank God there's a bag, right? There's a bag, right? So it goes right in the bag, and I'm like shocked. I'm like, oh my God. The resident is like, get the baby out of the bag, you know? And I'm like, oh my God. So I grab it, like, you know, like holding this thing, and I'm like, oh my God. So finally he's like, check the baby's head, and, you know, so I was like, dude, I was like, the mother's like, what is it? What is it? I'm like, I'm still trying to get it, you know? Like, so needless to say, they failed to mention how slippery a baby was. And I've delivered thousands of babies since, and now I deliver them with one hand. Just grab them, and, you know, no problem. I never dropped a baby again. You know? So that's probably the funniest thing in my medical career. Nobody asked that, but yeah. Huh? The resident. The mom never knew the baby went down. Yeah. It was in Galveston. Don't worry, it was none of you guys. All right? Like, that explains that fat part of my head. Yeah. All right, you guys can go talking, hey, Dr. Reyes dropped the baby, you know. All right. All right. So any other questions? All right, well, thank you guys for having me, okay?